calm down, calm down, calm down. Hi everyone, I'm Haley, and today, in honor of National Cake Decorating Day, which is October 10th as of 2020, I am going to be making a rainbow cake. I'm so excited to make this because I have wanted to make a rainbow cake for so long and I just haven't tried it yet because I love rainbows. I remember when I was little, I would just draw rainbows. That's all I would draw, and I would draw tons and tons of them because they're so pretty and I just love them so much. Also, it was probably because it was the only thing I knew how to draw, but that doesn't matter. It was mostly because I love rainbows. I know sometimes when you see a rainbow cake, it can be a little bit intimidating, but I'm gonna try to make this super easy so that you can make a stress-free, beautiful rainbow cake at home. And if you would like to follow along, then you can check the description box ahead of time for all the ingredients and measurements so you can make it at home. Now, let's get started. First off, let's talk about the cake batter. You're gonna need a cake recipe that makes 4 8-inch layers of cake, but we're gonna divide it into 6 pans so that it's a little bit thinner and easier to stack. So I have pre-made my cake batter, and you can check out what recipe I used in the description box below, or you can just use your favorite vanilla cake, or even a box mix works too, you know, do whatever. And now I'm going to separate this evenly into 6 bowls. Alright, so I have my 6 bowls laid out here, and this is for the 6 different colors: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple. And I'm going to divide my batter evenly into the bowls. It's very helpful also if you have 6 of the same bowl because it makes it easier to eyeball it. And once you've evenly divided your cake batter into the 6 bowls, we're now going to dye them. And when you dye your cake batter, you want to use gel food dye. If you have it or you can get it, it would be best to use gel food dye instead of liquid food dye because it won't change the consistency as much. Actually, it won't change the consistency at all, and liquid food dye does change the consistency. All right, for my first bowl of cake batter, I'm going to be dyeing it red. So you just want a few drops. You're going to start out with about 4 drops and mix it in, and then you can add a little bit more as you go, but you definitely want to start with less and then add more as you go. All right, you want your red batter to be very red because otherwise it's gonna look like orangey and it'll be kind of weird. So this one is probably the hardest one to dye because you want to get a nice deep red color. All right, so my red is done, and my colors look a little bit different on camera than they do in person, but just keep adding red dye until it's a light red or it reaches your desired color. But the red is really hard color to get. You're not gonna get it a very dark red unless you have like black food coloring, and you don't want to add too much dye. So you can stop once you get to a light red. Now for my second bowl of cake batter, I'm going to dye this one orange by using yellow and red food coloring. And you want to make sure that you're using a separate clean spoon when you're mixing each of your colors, that way the colors don't mix. Now for my third bowl of cake batter, I'm going to dye it yellow. And the amount of dye that you use for each of your colors will vary depending on what brand you're using and whether you're using gel or liquid food coloring. Okay, now that I'm done dyeing all of my cake batter, it's time to bake these. So this is what happens when you mix all the colors together with absolutely no measurements. I have no idea how I made this color. It was actually a mistake color, but I kind of messed up the purple. Now to bake them. We are going to bake these in 8-inch cake pans, and the first thing I'm going to do is spray my cake pans with some good old cake spray. This cake spray contains flour and cooking spray, so I don't have to flour my pans and get all that flour on the outside and have that floury taste. But if you do not have cake spray, then you are going to want to grease your pans and flour them to make sure that it doesn't stick. All right, now that my cake pans are greased, I'm going to pour the cake batter into my cake pans. And just in case this isn't clear, I'm using one color per pan. This is not like a swirl rainbow cake, it's a layered rainbow cake. I only have two 8-inch pans, so I'm going to be baking 2 cakes at a time. I'm gonna start by baking my red cake and my orange cake. All right, I've got my batter poured into my pans, and now I'm going to finally bake these. And the batter is going to be very thin, but that's okay because we don't want the layers to be too thick or they'll be harder to stack. I would recommend just following the instructions for the cake that you're making and reducing the time by 10 to 15 minutes because they're a lot thinner, so they'll bake quicker. But for me, my oven is preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm gonna bake these for about 10 minutes to start and then check on them. And you'll know when they're done when you can stick a toothpick in the middle and it comes out clean or with a few crumbs. All right, I am back with my red and orange cakes. Sorry, I did that like wrong. Red and orange cakes. And right now my yellow and green cakes are in the oven. My red and orange cakes are fully baked and they are completely cooled. You wanna make sure that they cool completely before we do this next step. So when your cake layers are completely cooled, you're gonna take one of them, set them on a piece of plastic wrap, and wrap them up really tight. It's important to wrap them with plastic wrap while you're waiting to frost them. That way they don't dry out while you're waiting, but you also want to make sure that they are completely cooled before you wrap them up. Otherwise, there will be too much moisture and it'll all get trapped in there and it'll make your cake kind of like gooey. And now you're going to continue wrapping the rest of your cakes with plastic wrap after they've baked and completely cooled. All right, now that I'm done baking all of my cakes, I'm going to make the frosting while I'm waiting for them to cool down. So the first thing I'm going to do is beat my butter. So I have 1 cup of soft salted butter, and you want to make sure that when you're softening your butter, you don't want it to be melty at all. So now I'm just going to use my mixer to beat the butter. We want it to get nice and fluffy. Once you've whipped up your butter, then the next ingredient we're going to add is our flavorings. I am using vanilla extract and almond extract. So I'm gonna add 3/4 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and 1/4 teaspoon of almond extract. The almond extract, you don't really want it to be like almondy flavored, you just want it to be kind of subtle. And I'm gonna beat those in. The next thing I'm going to add is my powdered sugar or icing sugar. I have 3 3/4 cups, and I have sifted mine so that there are no lumps, but you don't have to sift yours if you don't have a sifter. So you just want to add this a little bit at a time and beat it in on low. 1/2 cup, and now I'm gonna beat that in and continue doing this. Multitask, just kidding. I'm doing one thing. I finished adding in the last of my powdered sugar, and now it's very like fluffy and creamy, and it's actually kind of soft, which is just how you want it to be. You don't want it to be too stiff, but if yours is stiff, then you can add 1 to 2 tablespoons of whole milk or heavy whipping cream, and that'll help it. And now that I'm all done making my frosting, it's time to assemble our cakes. So to assemble the cakes, the first thing you want to do is level all of your cakes. So most of the cakes that I made are already extremely flat because I didn't put that much batter into each tin, so it didn't rise very much. But my blue cake, however, is very domed because I actually had to remake this one because my other blue cake looks a lot like my green cake. So I remade my blue cake. And also, storing them in the fridge while you're waiting is the best because you don't want them to be like warm at all when you're trying to assemble it. It would make it very hard. You can do this using a serrated knife or this leveler tool, and you're just gonna go, there's like these crispy edges, and you wanna use that kind of as your guide and just go across, sawing back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. You gotta take that layer off. All right, so I finished leveling my cake and now we're going to assemble them. The first thing you're gonna do is take some frosting and just put a little dab on the cake board. Sorry, not cake board, just whatever plate you're using. I'm actually using a turntable so it'll be easier. And I'm gonna smear it around with my spatula just a little bit. This is gonna help the cake stick so that they're not like moving around. The first layer I'm going to be putting down is red because my blue layer is kind of floppy and I don't trust it to be my base, but you can do your blue or whatever color you want. And make sure you take off the plastic wrap, that's very important. So I'm gonna put this one at the center, right side up. And now I'm gonna take some of my vanilla frosting that we made and just pipe all on top. It's really nice to put frosting in a piping bag because it ensures that you get a nice even layer of frosting. Just keep going all around and then fill in the center. And so now I'm gonna take my offset spatula and I'm just gonna smear it around. You get a nice even layer and it just makes it so much easier on yourself.
You have the same amount of cake as you have icing.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh well, that's okay. We want lots and lots of frosting. And you want to make sure your frosting is completely level and even, because if it's like lopsided and there's more in the center than the outsides, then your cake will be like this in the end. It'll be like a house triangle shape. Not that extreme, but pretty close. So now that I have my frosting all evenly spread, I'm gonna put my next layer on, which is orange. I'm all done with the rainbow cake. I'm just kidding. Now I'm gonna smooth it out. It's just like basically in globs on the sides, but you wanna start with way more than you think you'll need, because then we're gonna scrape it all off and smooth it all out. And the frosting doesn't have to be perfect because we are covering it with sprinkles so we can hide all of the mistakes of the frosting. So once you're happy with your frosting, then you're gonna need a pan covered with foil to catch the sprinkles that don't go on the cake. And I'm gonna take a big handful of rainbow jimmies. I have recently learned what these are called. I didn't used to be picky about sprinkles until I got sprinkles that I really hated. I'm gonna start at the bottom and just pull it up. And voila! My cake is finished. I am so happy with how this turned out. It's beautiful, honestly. I have never liked decorating cakes ever because I'm not very good at it, but this turned out so wonderful, and cake decorating is my new favorite thing. I was having so much fun decorating this, and it took a while, but it was really great. And then I piped frosting around the edges. I made another circle of sprinkles and I piped some more frosting in the middle. And I'm just so amazed. I've never made a cake this pretty. I'm serious. Never. My cakes always look horrible. They taste good, but they look horrible. So I think this cake is definitely a good way to honor National Cake Decorating Day. All right, now I'm ready to slice this and cut into it and see what it's gonna look like on the inside. Make sure that if you want a nice clean cut, you wipe off your knife in between cuts. And guys, you cannot leave off the rainbow sprinkles. This would not be a rainbow cake without the rainbow sprinkles. I'm so scared that I'm gonna like drop this piece of cake. Oh my gosh, that is so beautiful. Okay, I have to somehow set this cake down. Take it over to the plate. And there's some nice even layers of frosting. You can see like the full layer. It's not blending into the cake or whatever. Okay, so this is the pretty piece. I'm gonna move that to the side and I'm gonna cut another piece. It's like raining sprinkles over here. Every time I cut a piece, some more sprinkles fall off. That tastes really, really good. The frosting is so good, and I think it's because the almond extract was in it. That is the best frosting I've ever had. The best vanilla frosting. I can't believe I made this. It looks like I got it from a bakery. Well, thank you so much for baking with me today and celebrating National Cake Decorating Day with me. I hope you enjoyed this rainbow cake, and if you ever decide to make it, please let me know and let me know how it goes. And if there's something that you want to see me make in the future, then leave a comment down below and I will try to make it happen. And as always, I'll see you next time on You're Stirring It Wrong.